And now, another exciting episode of Get Your Brush On, where you're going to learn how to paint a ribbit. Oh my god! Ah! Ribbit. Hi again. As you can probably see here a little bit, is I'm going to be doing Plague Toads, or Beast of Nurgle, whichever you'd like to call them. Now, I primed it in black because, again, I don't have anything other than black to prime things in, and I like black, so there you go. But of course, if you want to, you can start with a green base instead, because that's my first step, is we're going to be painting it with the Castellan green base. And because it's so large, I've got a nice large brush to get the base coat on with it. And all you do is just work it all out in there. Which is why it's okay if you want to start with a green base coat spray instead of doing the black primer. It's perfectly okay. But the only place that I'm not going to get any green for right now is the inside of the mouth and the teeth. I'm going to try not to get any green on the toes as well, or on the horn. But pretty much everywhere else I'm just going to coat it. I'm going to cut the feet because this is such a large model. I don't want to take up so much time this go around showing you, because it's just, like I said, just rub, get coating. Okay? Alright, now that I've got a good coat of the Castellan green on here, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use some Lothern Forest. And this is going to be our first kind of highlight up. So I'm going to get some of this on my brush. And this is going to be like a thicker highlight. This is just going to be a rub this on. Not too terribly light, but we are going to leave some of that Castellan green in the places where I need it to, like in the deep shadows. See? And again, I don't want this video to be 2 hours long again, so I just finished doing that. Alright, now that we've got the Lothern Forest up on there, as you can see, there are some darker areas still left on it. The next step we're going to do is what I'm going to call dry brush. Straken green. And I'm still going to be using my good size brush because this is a really big model still, and I'm not doing a whole lot of detail just yet. And this is a kind of a much brighter color, so I'm not doing as much of the Straken as I did the Lothern Forest, but I am trying to get down in between where the where the warts are and stuff like that, because the warts are going to be completely different colors. So it's important to kind of work it into the skin, because that's where it's going to shine. That's where it's going to be seen, because all the warts and stuff like that are going to get covered. So I'm going to, again, cut the feed and get that all done. Alright, now that we got the Straken green on the skin as well, while I'm letting that dry somewhat, I'm going to take some Zandri dust base here and a smaller detail brush, and I'm going to give this frog a petty. Just gonna be getting these toenails in there real good. Now it's important with these plague frogs to know that some of them are missing toenails. Like it's either like grossly been falling off for a while and there's no toenail at all, or it's recently gotten ripped off and there's just a giant hole. So don't just assume to paint all the toes with the Zandri dust. Only the ones with the nails. Alright, now that I've got the base coat of nails on, we're going to do a highlight on the nails as well. Kind of like messy French tips on a disgusting plague frog. How fun is that? And the color that we're using for these nasty French tips, these are Doppy Bone. And the other reason why I'm doing the nails right now is because the nails are the other thing that are going to be utilizing the wash that we're going to be doing next. So that way you have to wait for one, you don't have to wash the nails right after you wash the skin. You can just do it all at once. Save you a little bit of time because this frog is so big. There we go. That the wash is going to take an hour at very least to dry because it's just so big and there's so many like little bumps and creases and whatnot. So I'm going to let those nails dry a little bit. Alright, now that I've let those nails dry, I'm going to take some of this Athonian Camoshade. It's like a black-green shade. Take my big brush. And just wash it. Just coat the whole thing where I've painted. Just all of it. Now, I don't want it puddling, but I want good coverage. So as you can see where it's puddling, I'm using my brush to pull that puddle out and thin it. Okay, this is another one of those things that I'm just going to fast forward through, so, because you get the point. Alright, now that we've got that all washed and it's nice and dry, you can see how it's gotten much darker. I got the toenails too, and they've got that nice kind of disgusting, cruddy look to them. We're going to take some of this dry paint here. Underhive Ash, and do just a little bit of our last highlight on the skin. And I just put just a tiny bit of this Underhive Ash on my brush, and I'm just kind of rubbing the top half of stuff. I'm not working it in anywhere else. A little bit across the face here. Because this is just going to be where, you know, the light's going to hit it. There. See? So it's got a little bit of brightness to it now. Now the next step that we're going to do, after the Underhive Ash, is I'm going to take some of this Elysian green. And what this is going to end up being is the first layer of our warts here on the skin. And pretty much, with the way these things are, they're just so bumpy and clumpy and whatever. You just kind of have to go in and go, okay, this is a wart, this isn't a wart. And all you do is just give it a nice cover. And there are some that are already popped. All I do with those is kind of just go around it. Because they're kind of like, you know, blackheads, pimples, whatever. And you know, after they pop, sometimes, you know, there's a giant crater there. And you can because once we get all this done, at the very end, we're going to use some technical paints. And we're either going to fill those with pus or blood, depending on how you feel. So, because there's so many of these, I'm going to cut the feet again, and when we come back, I'm going to show you the next step in doing all the warts, pimples, whatever you want to call them. Alright, now that we got our warts kind of colored in here, as you can see, all those nice little pimply balls are all colored in. The next step is we're going to add some kind of whitehead looking bits to them to make them look real nasty looking. And we're going to do that with some Ogryn Camo. And all this requires is taking a little detail brush, move it in there, and go into each one and just putting a little dab, you know, on top, kind of where it goes, however big you want it. And this, of course, is going to take just as long as dotting each individual one. I know it's tedious, but when you're done, it looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it again, because, yeah, we'll be here all night. Alright. Now that we've got the Ogryn Camo on all of the little warty bits, as you can see, they've got a nice look to them right now. The next step is I'm going to take out the Athonian Camoshade again, and this time not doing it as deeply as the first time, just kind of lightly kind of go over just the warts and stuff, just to kind of give them a little bit of a depth of color, so they don't look so out of place. And then after I get them all covered again, I'm going to let them dry before moving on to the next step. Okay? Alright, now that that's had time to dry, as you can see, it's the kind of warty pimples are now a little bit darker. They kind of mesh with the skin tone a little better. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to leave the warts and everything else alone. We're going to work on the mouth, because the mouth is a large part of this miniature. So, I'm going to pull out my Screamer Pink. And what I'm going to do is, this is going to be the exterior and gums base right here. So, kind of get in there and color this side of the mouth right here. And the gums on the bottom. You can't really see the gums on the top of the model, so you don't have to worry about coloring them. Alright. Now, all I'm doing is this little flap right here and the exterior gum. I'm going to do the same on this side here too, and the exterior gum. The inside, I'm going to do a completely different color. So I'm going to pause it again and get all those areas done. Alright, so now that I've got the gum all laid out with my Screamer Pink, I'm going to take out next color, Pink Horror. Well, Horror Pink. Yeah, Pink Horror. Blah. That same kind of detail brush. And just kind of highlight it. Well, highlight / go over all the gums and whatnot. Kind of brighten it up. And I'm just going to go over those. Again, this is not a complete just wash over. I'm going to leave some of that Screamer Pink on there for sure. This is just going to give it a more kind of gum. Let me get my thumb out of the way. More kind of gummy look to it. And as you can see, I kind of extended the gum to the rest of this right in here, because this is one just big old opening. I'm not going to extend the pink, the Pink Horror all the way down, because I want this area right here to remain kind of darker, because it's not extended right here. Now on the other side, there's not that clear line, so I didn't extend it past this jaw mark. But I think it works this way. Alright, so we're going to leave that alone and let that dry. Alright, now for the inside of the mouth, we're going to use Naggaroth Night base. Basically, this guy's going to have like a purple mouth, like tongue and interior. Because I just think it'll look neat. So basically, you just get the roof of the mouth, the tongue thing, and like the inside of this inside of the teeth marks here, and this like little flap here, because I think this little flap is basically just kind of come loose, and you're just gonna get it all purple. All right, now that we've got the Naggaroth Night all up in the mouth, covered everything in it, we're going to take out some Xereus purple. And this is going to be our first layer of highlight. And we're just kind of like how the script versus skin highlight was. This is what the Xereus is going to do. It's going to be kind of thick in some areas, but still leave that Naggaroth Knight showing. Do a couple of lines in the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth is important. I mean, you don't see it very much, but I mean, if you flip the model up ever, you will see it. So if you take the time to kind of do some nice highlights on the roof of the mouth as well, it'll just add to the beauty of the model in general. I know it's really, I can't get a good view. There we go. See, because it's got some nice lines in it, like an actual roof of a mouth. It's not smooth, so I mean, it's important to try and get up in there with your brush and do this. And I mean, doing a little bit of the highlights on the inside of this little tongue bit here is good as well. Alright, so alright, so the next step in the purple of the mouth here is going to be Genestealer purple. And this is going to be a more controlled highlight than the Xereus. And when I say controlled, I mean we're going to be highlighting specific things with this. Like there's... I wish I could put my light somewhere where it's not going to get in the way of my brush. Okay. Like there's this little bumps back here on the tongue. We're going to pull those out specifically. Going to do a couple of lines here from where the going to pull these kind of lines out here on the tongue. Do a couple of those right there. Pull out a couple of lines in the roof of the mouth. Just very specific things. See? Yeah, just very specific things. And that's our first controlled highlight. Alright, now the last bit of purple paint that we're going to put in the mouth, I swear, is going to be some Slaanesh gray. And it's going to be very similar to how we just did the Genestealer. It's going to be very specific on where it's going. It's not going to be a general kind of overcoat highlight. There we go. Specifically, it's going to kind of make little white head looking things. on the dots. It's kind of gonna go in and kind of help out the Genestealer in places. Alright. See, now it looks like very bright and shiny and stuff like that. Well, we're not going to just leave it like that. We're going to actually wash it. So, we're going to let it dry. Okay. So, now that we've let it dry for a little bit, what we're going to do is, you may have guessed, we're going to wash it with the Druchii Violet. And the only place that we want this Druchii Violet to be is on the purple bits. We don't want to get it on the pink gums, because we're actually going to wash the pink gums in something different. Alright, so as you can see, the Druchii Violet shade is still a little damp, but we're going to go ahead and wash the gums with Carroburg Crimson. And because we are going to be careful with it, we're not going to get the Carroburg Crimson mixed with the Druchii Violet. So it's okay to go ahead and wash this, so we're not wasting it. So they can dry together. There you go. Just going to extend this shade along this area that I had extended the mouth flap. So there. It's a little darker. But I think overall this is coming together quite nicely. Now we just gotta wait for all of that to dry. Now that the Druchii Violet has time to dry, and the Carroburg Crimson as well, we're going to deal with the teeth. And with what we're going to do for that is the same thing we did with the toenails, is the Zandri dust. And a detail brush. And just pick out all of the teeth. Now, some of the teeth on this thing are randomly placed, like this. This right here is a tooth. I have no idea why. There's like one tooth like right here. Where there's no other teeth on the green part at all. Well, the bottom teeth, anyway. And we're just going to pick them all out, including like the underside of the teeth as well, so that way you get it all wrapped around. I'm going to cut the feed and I'm going to get all the teeth. Alright, now as you can see, I've gotten all the teeth, and I went ahead and I did a step further. I got the 2 bone horns on top, and there's a skull embedded on the side here. And all I did was I just went over them with that Zandri dust as well. Now the next step, what we're going to do with all of these pieces, is we're going to highlight them with some Ushabti bone. And see, I've got my cruddy brush here. And we're just going to kind of go over the teeth. Just to kind of pull out that there might be like a little bit of a sharper edge on them. Now, unlike with the Zandri dust, see, I've got all the teeth down there all filled in. We're not going to do the Ushabti bone on that because that's not where it's shining. They're still going to be all rotty and yucky, but we're just going to give a little bit of sharpness to the outside. And we're just going to apply lightly to the horns here. It's alright if there's a little bit more Ushabti bone on the horns here, because we can get more ink on them, so it's alright. So, see, I've got the Ushabti bone on there. Alright, and this is very delicate right here. Just doing a little frontal bone highlight on the skull, see? Just a little bit of a highlight on the front part. Alright, so now that that's done, we're going to let it dry for a minute, and then we're going to wash it. Alright, now that we've let that dry for just a little bit, we're going to wash it up, like I said, with Agrax Earthshade, liquid talent. Now, instead of using my cruddy brush this time, I'm using a more kind of detail-oriented brush. It's a little bigger than a detail brush, but it's going to help me control the washes as I apply them. So, because I really don't want to get any of the washes on the green of the skin. I don't want to get it on the purple in the mouth or like the pink in the gums. Really, I mean, it's gonna get a little bit on those. Like, it's gonna pull where the stuff meets, well, where the teeth meets the skin and the gums. But that's the only place where I want it to even touch it. So I just kind of work it in there, kind of flip it up, make sure to get the underside of the teeth as well. There we go. Got those. Gonna hit the skull too. Make sure to have just a little bit of pulling in the sockets, so the sockets stay nice and dark. And then we're brushing up the horn. There, all washed up. So I'm going to let that dry just a little bit. Alright, now that that's had time to dry, what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to take the Agrax Earthshade back again, and I'm going to go over the base of the horn with it. So not all the way up. Just to kind of darken the bottom of it. I'm going to do that just a little bit on this one here too. Alright. And now while that's drying, we're going to work on the eye. And the first color that we're going to need for the eye is Wild Rider Red. So I take some of that and my detail brush, and I'm just going to fill the eye in. Entirely with this Wild Rider. Okay, so now we have a nice kind of orangey red eyeball. Now while I still have it on my brush, I'm going to put just a little bit of the Wild Rider on the upper lid. A smidge down here on some of the facial features as well. And what that's going to do is when we're done, it's going to kind of give this kind of glow effect. Now the next color that's going to get used, because this is going to be kind of a multi-color process to get this nice kind of glowy eye effect. The next color I'm going to use is Tau Light Ochre. It's kind of a lighter, like yellowy orange color. I'm just going to get some on my brush here, and I'm just going to make a pupil, well, iris, out of it. See? Nice little circle right there in the middle. And the third color in this little thing is going to be Flash Glitz Yellow. And this is like the super bright, bright yellow. So I just get some on my brush again. And kind of make a pupil there in the center of it. So now that's nice and flashy. I'm going to have to let this dry before I can finish the eye, because the eye is not quite done yet. But as you can see already, the the added Wild Rider around the eye is already starting to give that nice kind of glow effect. But we're going to let that dry now. Alright, let's work on some of the wounds. As you can see, there's some open gashes on the figure, along with, you know, several holes where it looks like, you know, the zits or whatever have popped. So there's lots of opportunity for blood. And what we're going to start with to get this effect is the Mephiston Red. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to identify any kind of gashes, open wounds, what have you, on this frog. And I'm kind of just going to go in there and make them Mephiston Red. And also pick whatever little holes are actually kind of bloody instead of being overly pussy. So kind of the great thing about this kind of model is, yes, you can get multiples of these, and there's only like 3 of them that are different. But you can make each of them individual by picking different places where blood or pus can shoot out of them. Just to, you know, vary things up a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to cut the feed and get that Mephiston in. Alright. Now that that's had time to dry and we've done the primary coat of Mephiston on all like the little bloody areas, so, you know, gashes and holes and whatnot, I dripped a little bit down here onto the tooth, simply because there's this gash up top. There we go. And I basically just dripped the blood because I think it's new. And that way it's a little bit more interesting. So, and the skull is stuck into this bloody gash hole thing. So, now the next step with the blood is we're going to take some Evil Sunz Scarlet and kind of just highlight up some of the bloodier bits, just to kind of make it a little bit brighter in certain areas. And we're just going to do that to all the little bits here. See, we're not filling it with the red. We're just kind of adding a little bit of the Evil Sunz on top of it to kind of brighten it up in certain areas. Alright? Alright. Now while that Evil Sunz is drying, we're going to go back to the eye, because the eyeball at this point has dried. And we're going to put some Bloodletter glaze over top of it. And basically all this is I just mop the eyeball with it. So after that dries, there's only one more step and then the eyeball's completely done. Now while we're waiting on that, we might as well finish up the toenails. because they've been waiting a while. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to take some of this Tyrant Skull Dry paint. Get it on my cruddy brush. And kind of just go over these toes a little bit on it with it. The basic point of that is just so the toes aren't so green. I mean, the green's in the nice cracks and crevices, but it's not directly on top of the nail anymore. It kind of brightens them up and pulls the nail out away from the skin visually. So there. Get that little bit. There we go. Now all the toes are, all the nails kind of come away from the skin a little bit more, and that makes it look nice. Since we're doing that, we might as well do the teeth and the horns as well. Now the teeth and the horns we're going to do with a different dry paint, however. We're going to do those with the Praxeti white dry paint. And that's just because the teeth are inside the mouth, so they're not being constantly hopped around on the ground. So they should be just a slightly different color. So I just take my cruddy brush and just brighten the teeth a little bit with this. Again, just going on the outside, not going on both sides or all around, just kind of what's seen on the front. So now he looks a little bit more like he's brushed his teeth, but not really. Oh, don't forget this tooth over here. Alright. And we're going to do the same thing with the horns, only we're not going to do the whole horn. We're just going to make it kind of look like the top was kind of sharpened to a point. And the way we do that is we pile more of... Alright, now that the Carroburg Crimson has dried, the next step is going to be using some technical paints. And the reason for the technical paints, I'm just going to go ahead and show you, because this is the one that we've been working on. So, as you can see, all like the pimples and whatnot, they don't really stand out that great. Now, if you look at this is the same model that I've done, and it has the technical paints applied to it. See how shiny the warts and everything are now, and glistening, and all that nice pus? And the blood is all very shiny and wet looking. This is what the technical paints are going to do. This is the reason for using them. So, I mean, if you don't have them, the model on the right still is a nice model, it looks good, it looks finished. So you don't necessarily have to use the technical paints, but I think that they add just a little bit of a nicer touch. Alright, that being said, the first one we're going to use is the Nurgle's Rot technical paint. And this is what's going to be going on. This is our pus, our little pimple green stuff. I'm also going to rub it on the inside of the mouth. And then get my brush and everything out here. It's important to shake these things up well, because when they're sitting, they kind of have a tendency to separate and turn white in certain places. So make sure before you start, you always shake it up real good. And as you can see, I've got like the slightly bigger detail brush to work with. And with the zits and whatnot, all you do, just rub it on top. And that's all you do. Now, we've also got some of these holes here where the zit has popped. You can kind of fill that in and kind of trail off just a little bit. There. Now it looks like, you know, it popped and ran. You can also do it around a little bit around where the ones that we've got that are bloody are showing, because we're going to go back in there with the blood too. But that way it'll have that nice blood and pus look to it later. Now the other thing that I'm going to show you on camera before I just cut the feed is I'm actually going to be doing it to the inside of the mouth. As you can see, none of the mouth is green. So what we're going to do is we're going to rub it inside, and we're going to spread it out as much as we can. And this is just going to give that slick look with some really just nasty kind of gunky spit that it's got in its mouth. And that's the whole point of doing it like this. And get it all in there too, because that's where I imagine it's going to come out. Right here on the gums and everything, so it's all nice and glistening. Now you can get some gloss to get that glisten effect as well, but with these guys, like I said, I think them having some really nasty looking spit kind of adds to it. Alright, so I'm going to cut the feet now and get all the rest of that Nurgle rot on there. Alright, now that we've got all the Nurgle rot on here, all these nice glistening warts and whatnot, it's always hard to tell when the technical paints are dry, just due to the fact that they're shiny regardless. But, so I mean, you can let it dry for 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes, and then go back to work. Now that I've got all that done, the last step to do is the blood. And we're going to do that with Blood for the Blood God. It's another one of the technical paints. It's got a very nice, thick, goopy kind of blood, fake blood-like consistency to it. Kind of similar to the Nurgle's Rot, except, you know, it's red. So all we're going to do is just get it on that same brush and apply it where blood needs to be. And you can apply it more places than where we've set up for where our blood to be. Like, I kind of like giving just a little bit of blood on the toenails here, because I imagine, you know, it's more than just the one that is going to fall off. Like, I imagine these things kind of snap off like pogs, so having a little blood there makes them look pretty good. Now, besides just putting it where we've already marked where our blood's going to go, you can kind of drip it down just a little bit. You know, go with gravity to kind of show, you know, where it's kind of trickling and bleeding. So it's not just stagnant. You know, it might have smeared here or there. As you can kind of see, I kind of smeared just a little bit on the in front of the skull here too. Because, you know, it's in an open gash, so I imagine there's going to be a little bit of blood there anyway. Like on it. Kind of get in there. Kind of trickle it down some more. You know, that kind of thing. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the feed because there's no real special trick to this. It's just, you know, put it where it needs to go. Trail it down a little bit. Alright, so the blood for the blood god has been applied now. And you may be wondering, alright, if we're going to do the blood for the blood god, why did you have me paint all that red on there? Well, the simple fact of the matter is the blood for the blood god, it's nothing more than like a kind of glossy, clear red. So when it dries, it's not going to be, you know, thick and red. It's going to it actually looks like it's gone over the skin. See, like right here, it's not, let me get a little closer here. Focus. It's going to be kind of like a greeny red right there because it's going over the green skin. We put the red in because this is where the muscle tissue and everything is. So that even though we have applied the blood for the blood god there, it's going to stay a nice, clear, crisp, clean red. Whereas where we've got the trickle down, it's going to have that just kind of smeared over skin look. So that's why. It's not because we're gluttons for punishment and I want you to do more work than is necessary. It does have a purpose. And the same goes with the warts. Because unless like you glop it on like a lot, you can still see that white head right there that we applied. So there are reasons for doing all what I did. And there you have it. How to do a plague toad for your Beast of Nurgle. Thank you guys, and questions, comments, concerns, put them down at the bottom. I'll take a look at them. Any models you guys want to see me paint, again, I'll do my best. Just let me know. And as always, commission work. If you guys want me to paint something for you specifically, email my husband. I'll have that email below. And see you next time.